What if emotional stability wasn't a breakthrough, but a quiet practice you repeat each day? When your world feels chaotic, the smallest rituals can become your strongest anchors. This isn't about controlling everything. It's about finding peace in one breath, one step, one habit at a time. We tend to think emotional stability requires a massive shift, therapy, retreats, deep meditations, or life-altering routines. But what if the real transformation starts smaller? Much smaller. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, overlooked moments. In the way you touch an object, stand still in a room, or change your angle by 10 degrees. What if healing wasn't always loud and obvious, but subtle, sensory, and barely visible from the outside? Your nervous system is listening every day, not to your goals, not to your calendar, but to how you move through the ordinary, to how you pause, breathe, touch, and notice. And when life feels like too much, it's not always insight you need. It's interruption, a tiny pattern break, a micro reset, a gesture that says, "We're safe now. You don't need to brace for impact." This episode isn't about journaling, affirmations, or breath work. You've heard all that. This is about new, underused tools, tiny habits that restore internal balance quietly. No discipline required, no routines to master, just subtle anchors that shift your body and your mind gently and consistently. They may look insignificant, even odd, but they work because emotional stability doesn't come from effort alone. It comes from rhythm, from groundedness, from how you show up for yourself when no one's watching. So today, I'll guide you through 15 micro habits that take almost no time, cost nothing, and require no special knowledge. But they carry real impact, not because they change your circumstances, but because they help you hold them better. This is your invitation to create emotional steadiness. Not in the future, not after burnout, not when things calm down, but right now, one small act at a time. Rotate the direction you sleep. It sounds almost too simple to matter. Turning your bed, shifting your pillow to the footboard, sleeping with your head facing a different wall. But this minor act, often dismissed as meaningless, can have a surprising impact on your internal state. Why? Because your body is deeply tied to spatial memory. The position you sleep in becomes encoded into your nervous system. The smells, light, angles, they're not just background, they're anchors. And when those anchors are constantly tied to stress, worry, or insomnia, the mind starts to associate your entire rest cycle with tension. Rotating the direction you sleep is a subtle way of telling your brain, this is new. And in that shift, your system becomes more alert. Not in an anxious way, but in a reorganized one. It's a nervous system recalibration. Think of it as changing the perspective without leaving the room. You're not redesigning your life, just rotating your view of it. And sometimes, that's enough to break the loop. When you sleep in the same position, facing the same direction night after night, your body starts to expect repetition, including mental repetition. You may find yourself having the same thoughts at bedtime, the same emotional spirals, the same restless dreams, but move the bed even just 90 degrees and you interrupt the pattern. You confuse the script. Your sensory system is forced to reorient itself even subtly, and in doing so it becomes present, awake to new inputs, open to new rhythms. This is not magic, it's environmental psychology. Ancient practices like Fang understood this intuitively, that the energy of a room shifts when you shift your placement within it. But even without that framework, neuroscience backs it. Environmental cues shape emotional patterns. When those cues are disrupted, the emotional script that follows them weakens, and that creates an opening, a moment of calm, a new breath, a more stable internal state. So what does this look like in practice? Tonight, if your room allows, turn your sleeping position. Head where your feet usually go, or shift the angle or change which side of the bed you face. Notice how your body responds. Notice how your mind reacts. It may feel strange at first, disorienting even. But that's the point. That disorientation signals to your nervous system that something new is happening. And newness, when safe, creates space for healing. You don't need to do this forever. One night might be enough, or once a week. What matters is the intention behind it. You're not just trying to sleep. You're resetting the internal landscape through physical adjustment. You're telling your system, we can do this differently now. So ask yourself tonight, what if I allowed my rest to begin with something as simple as turning? What if emotional stability wasn't only about routines and structure, but about breaking subtle patterns that no longer serve me? Because sometimes, the smallest shift in direction opens the door to the deepest kind of peace. Place one object with intention each morning. Before you check your phone, before the world reaches in with noise, demands, and notifications, try this. Choose one small object and place it with intention. That's it. A key, a coffee mug, a pen, a candle, a folded cloth, anything. The object doesn't matter. What matters is the energy behind the act. You're not just moving something. You're anchoring your nervous system in presence. We begin most mornings in automatic mode. Wake up, scroll, rush, forget. And that rushed start sets the tone. It tells your body that life is something to catch up to, not something to move with. That's why this habit matters. Placing one object, slowly, consciously, and deliberately tells your body, I am here. I am safe. I am choosing the pace. It's a pattern interrupt not just to your thoughts, but to your entire physiological rhythm. Think of it this way. Your nervous system is constantly asking, are we safe? And it takes cues from what you do. Frantic motion. It assumes urgency. Stillness with attention. It assumes safety. And the best part, you don't need to meditate or journal or say a single word. Just place the object. Let your hand move slowly. Let your eyes follow. Let your breath sync with the movement. Over time, this practice builds what's called sensory motor grounding, a fancy term for how your body learns to feel calm through simple, physical interactions. The touch of ceramic, the placement of metal on a wooden counter, the quiet moment of deciding where something belongs. It's not about perfection. It's about intentional presence in a world that's built to distract you. Before you even get out of bed, this habit doesn't require extra time. It's not a task. It's a transition. A way to start the day from the inside out. When you place something with care, your mind notices, your breath slows. And even if chaos follows later, you began with calm. And that beginning changes how everything feels. It can be as small as placing your toothbrush on the sink with focus, your keys in a dish without rushing, a small stone on your windowsill with a pause. Some mornings it'll feel pointless, but over time you'll feel it. A subtle shift in how you meet the day, a soft strength, a steadiness that doesn't need to shout. So ask yourself, what if my nervous system doesn't need more motivation, just more grounding? And what if emotional balance could begin with something as simple as placing one object on purpose? Because the way you begin is often the way you continue. Change your password to a word that calms you. You type it without thinking every day, maybe multiple times, to unlock your phone, to log in at work, to check your email, your bank, your apps. Passwords are modern rituals repeated over and over with no awareness. But what if you transform that unconscious repetition into a moment of calm? What if instead of typing random letters and numbers, you typed a quiet affirmation? Something soft, grounding, personal. This isn't just a cute idea. It's a nervous system cue, because what you repeat and what you remember shapes how you feel. Imagine this. Every time you log into your laptop, you type a word like stillness or soft focus, 24 or breathe now. No one else sees it. It's just for you. But each time your fingers tell your brain we're safe, we're present, we're okay. That's not fluff. That's patterning. And when your day is built on hundreds of tiny patterns, even one calming anchor can shift your baseline. This practice is subtle, invisible, and that's what makes it powerful. You're not adding a task. You're transforming a habit that already exists into a tool for self-regulation. It takes no extra time, no new app, no external permission, just a decision. From now on, my password won't just protect my account, it will protect my peace. And, over time, you begin to feel it. Typing your password becomes less mechanical, more conscious. The word enters your day quietly but repeatedly, and every repetition becomes a soft whisper to your nervous system. Return. The Stoics spoke often about the power of repetition, but they understood it had to be intentional. Marcus Aurelius repeated core truths to himself every day, not because he didn't know them, but because the reminder is the medicine. You have power over your mind, he told himself. Nowhere is more peaceful than your own soul. That wasn't a lesson. It was a password he typed into his thoughts again and again. So what would yours be? Choose a word that feels safe. Not forced. Not performative. Something that when read in your mind or felt through your fingers makes you breathe deeper. It could be a name, a place, a concept, a sentence. Add a number if needed. Of course, keep it secure, but let the core of it reflect the state you want to live in. Because in a world that pulls you into speed and noise, every moment of intention matters. So ask yourself, if I'm going to type something 100 times a month, why not make it a message I actually need to hear? Because your passwords unlock more than accounts. They can unlock peace. Speak to an inanimate object kindly once a day. It sounds strange at first, even silly, speaking gently to your coffee mug, thanking your chair, wishing your pen a good day. But beneath the surface of that small, almost childlike act is something profound. A deliberate repatterning of how you relate to your environment and to yourself. We live in a world that conditions us to rush, to judge, to correct. We yell at our laptops when they lag. We slam cabinet doors when frustrated. We throw our keys down after a long day like they're to blame for our exhaustion. But here's the thing. The way you treat the inanimate often mirrors how you treat the invisible. Your thoughts, your habits, your body, your breath. When kindness is reserved only for people, and even then only selectively, it becomes a scarce, guarded resource. But when you extend it to the smallest, quietest pieces of your day, it becomes a way of being. Speaking to an object with care, with softness, with a little smile, tells your nervous system something radical. We're allowed to be gentle even here, even now. And over time, this practice rewires your emotional tone because it's not really about the object. It's about you. The Stoics believed in practicing virtue not just in thought but in action. Epictetus taught that your habits, even the smallest ones, are the scaffolding of your character. If you want to become patient, act patiently. If you want to become kind, be kind in every direction, including toward the things that cannot respond, because it's not about being seen. It's about being consistent. So, what does this look like in practice? You walk into your kitchen. You pour water into a glass. You say, "Thank you for holding this." You sit in your favorite chair and whisper, "You've supported me more than most people ever have." You tie your shoes and say, "Let's go do something good today." Just once a day. No theatrics, no audience, just you and something still, and something inside you. Something old and quiet exhales, because that object you're speaking to, it can't judge you. It can't mock you. It doesn't demand anything from you. It simply receives. And that teaches your body, I can be soft without consequence. It also builds what psychologists call sensorial empathy, the ability to notice, appreciate, and care for what's often ignored. And when you build that muscle, it doesn't stop with mugs and chairs. It expands to you, your fatigue, your needs, your mess. You begin to meet yourself with the same kind of kindness you gave to the cup. So ask yourself, what would shift if I made gentleness a habit? Not just toward others, but toward the things I've never thought to honor. What would happen if my default emotional posture wasn't tension, but care? Because when you can speak gently to a table, you're teaching yourself to speak gently in silence. And in a world that teaches you to push harder, that's an act of quiet rebellion. Create a pause spot in your home. Most of your home is built for doing. A place to cook, a place to work, a place to watch, a place to clean. But how much of your space is built for not doing, for pausing, for breathing, for simply being without expectation or output? In a world that rewards movement, this idea might feel unfamiliar, maybe even wasteful, but it's not. It's essential. A pause spot isn't about aesthetics or luxury. It's about wiring your environment to support your nervous system. One chair, one floor cushion, one corner by the window. That's all it takes. A space you claim not to work, not to plan, not to fix, but to stop. And when you return to that spot consistently, even for 2 or 3 minutes a day, your body begins to associate it with relief. Your system says, "Here, I can rest." This is how emotional stability is built. Not just through mindset, but through ritual space, because your body is always learning from your surroundings. You don't just react to stress emotionally. You absorb it through posture, through habit, through architecture. And when your environment is a loop of tasks, even your breath forgets how to slow down. The Stoics didn't talk about interior design, but they understood inner architecture. They believed in returning to themselves throughout the day. Marcus Aurelius called it retreating into the soul. He wrote, "No here you can go is more peaceful than your own soul." Retreat there often. But in today's world, even the soul needs a physical invitation. So how do you create this? Look around. Find a space, not big, not fancy, a step, a corner, a seat near natural light. Add one small object that grounds you. A book, a candle, a plant, a stone. No screens, no stimulation. This spot doesn't need to look spiritual. It needs to feel safe. Then use it, not for long, just a few minutes. Sit. Breathe. Do nothing. Let your shoulders fall. Let your eyes unfocus. Let the day catch up to you without trying to fix it. It might feel boring at first. That's okay. You're training your body to not rush towards stimulation, to feel safe in stillness. And over time, this spot becomes more than a chair. It becomes a message, a practice, a home within your home, a place that says, you're allowed to stop here. You're allowed to come undone here. You don't need to perform in this corner. So ask yourself, where is my pause in the middle of all this doing? Where do I just exist? Where do I go? Not to escape, but to exhale. Because stability isn't built through intensity. It's built through repetition of moments like this. Tiny pauses that teach your body it's safe to slow down. Use a timer not to rush but to focus. Most people associate timers with urgency, with deadlines, with pressure, the ticking clock, the countdown, the race to finish before the bell. But a timer, when used intentionally, can become something entirely different. Not a whip, but a container. Not a force of anxiety, but a structure that creates safety. Because for a nervous system stuck in overwhelm, open-ended time is often the real source of stress. You sit down to do something simple, Write an email, clean the counter, check in with your thoughts, and yet the moment stretches, feels heavy, feels endless. There's no clear beginning and no clear end, so your brain avoids it or worse, starts spinning. Should I keep going? Am I wasting time? Is this enough? That's where the timer comes in. Not as pressure, but as permission. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Just 5. Tell yourself, for the next 5 minutes I only have to do one thing. That's it. Not perfectly, not quickly, just one thing. And the moment the timer begins, your nervous system releases. It has structure, it has boundaries, it knows this won't last forever. And ironically, it often leads you deeper into presence than hours of unstructured effort ever could. The Stoics prized clarity over chaos. Epictetus taught that attention is a choice, that your job isn't to control all things, but to be deliberate with what you give your focus to. In modern life, where 1,000 things demand your mind at once, the timer becomes a sacred tool of mental protection. Let's take a few examples. 5 minutes to fold clothes, just that. 5 minutes to sit in silence. 5 minutes to work on something creative. 5 minutes to feel what you've been avoiding. The moment is framed. The pressure drops. Your body stops resisting. And in that window of focus time, something shifts. You begin to feel capable again. Not because you finished something massive, but because you followed through on a small promise. And here's the magic. You can always renew it after the first 5 minutes. Maybe you continue, maybe you stop. Either way, you've practiced showing up. And for emotional stability, showing up without dread is more valuable than any productivity system. So ask yourself, what's one thing I've been avoiding? Because it feels too open, too big, too endless. What would happen if I gave it 5 minutes with a timer and with kindness? Because structure doesn't always mean stress. Sometimes it means freedom. And when your mind learns that time has a beginning and an end, it begins to rest inside your focus. Again, let your eyes trace the edges of a room. You walk into a space and your eyes jump from object to object. Screen, light, task, distraction. That's how most of us look. Sharp, quick, reactive. But what if instead of looking at things, you allowed your gaze to move with them, to trace their outlines, to follow their shape, to travel slowly along the edge of a table, a curtain, a frame, a wall, without rushing, without analyzing, without labeling, just watching. This simple act, letting your eyes gently trace the edges of a room, is a nervous system regulator because it slows your visual system, which slows your mental rhythm, which sends a message to your brain. We're not in danger, we're just observing. When your eyes move slowly, your brain exits fight or flight. When your focus softens, your thoughts follow. This is biology, not magic. Your visual field is directly linked to your state of arousal. Rapid darting eye movement is often associated with anxiety, alertness, or panic. But slow tracking, what scientists call smooth pursuit, activates the parasympathetic system. It's the same system engaged during deep rest. And when practiced with intention, it becomes a signal your whole body recognizes. It's safe to calm down. This is one of those habits that seems almost too simple to matter. And yet, it works every time. Not because you force yourself to feel calm, but because you offer your system the conditions where calm becomes natural. Where stillness isn't demanded, it's allowed. The Stoics spoke of perception often. To them, how you see was as important as what you see. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But your thoughts are often shaped by your gaze, by how you move through space, how you allow the world to meet you visually. And if your gaze is sharp, scattered, hurried, your mind follows. If your gaze becomes steady, slow, deliberate, so does your presence. So, try this the next time you enter a room, your home, your office, a cafe. Pause. Don't think. Just move your eyes. Pick one corner. Follow the line to the next. Trace the outline of a doorway, the curve of a lamp, the shape of a shadow. You're not solving anything. You're softening your awareness. Do it for 30 seconds, maybe a minute. No rules, just visual quiet. And in that quiet, you may notice your breath deepens, your shoulders fall, your thoughts slow, because what you just offered your nervous system was relief. So ask yourself, when was the last time I let my eyes rest, in observation, not obligation? What would shift in my day if I gave myself the gift of slow seeing even once? Because stability isn't always found through thinking. Sometimes it begins with how you look. Carry a small token that represents strength. We live so much in our minds that we forget how powerful the physical can be. But sometimes when thoughts are spiraling and emotions feel like too much, the most effective reset doesn't come from something you think. It comes from something you hold. A coin, a small stone, a ring, a necklace, a piece of string, something worn smooth by your fingertips, something that has weight, not just in your pocket, but in meaning. A small token that reminds you of something greater than the storm inside your head. This isn't superstition. It's somatic anchoring. It's nervous system wisdom in action. Why does this work? Because when you're overwhelmed, your thoughts are often spinning into the abstract, the future, the past, the what-ifs. But touch brings you back. The nervous system responds to texture, to temperature, to weight. When you grip something intentionally, it pulls your awareness out of the spiral and into the now. You don't need to explain anything. You just feel. That's enough to start the reset. This is not new. Warriors used to carry talismans into battle. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius kept small objects on their person as reminders of mortality, clarity, and virtue. The Stoics understood the need for daily tools, not just lofty ideals. Seneca said, "We should keep before our eyes examples of those who have lived well, but we often forget those reminders can be physical, tactile, present." So how do you apply this? Find something small, meaningful. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to look like much to anyone else. What matters is what it represents to you. Maybe it's something someone gave you when you were at your lowest. Maybe it's something you picked up during a turning point in your life. Maybe you choose it today for what you want it to symbolize: strength, calm, resilience, clarity. Keep it with you in your pocket, on a chain, on your desk. And when the pressure rises, don't just push through. Pause. Reach for it. Hold it. Feel its shape. Let it become the weight that steadies you when the world feels too loud. Because this isn't about the object, it's about what you associate with it. The story it reminds you of, the strength it reflects back, the presence it reawakens. It becomes a conversation not in words, but in sensation. So ask yourself, what could I carry with me that reminds me of who I am, especially when I forget? What object could I turn into a sacred anchor, not for show but for stability? Because sometimes all it takes to return to yourself is the feel of something real in your hand. And in that touch, you remember you are still here and you are still strong. Use your feet to sense temperature. You don't need to go on a retreat to reconnect with your body. You don't need a new meditation app or a 10-step breathwork routine. Sometimes emotional regulation begins at your feet. Literally, not metaphorically, not symbolically, physically. Take your socks off, place your feet on the floor, whether it's cool tile, warm wood, soft carpet, or cold concrete, and pause. Don't try to feel something specific. Just let your nervous system notice the shift in temperature, the texture, the contact. No need to name it. Just experience it. Because this act, this small grounding moment, brings your awareness out of your head, and into your body. And the body is where stability lives. When your thoughts are racing, your mind is disconnected from the present. But your body, it's always here, and your feet are a direct access point to that presence. They're sensitive, responsive, and rarely paid attention to. That's why this works so well. By focusing on the bottom of your feet, especially the contrast in temperature, you activate sensory awareness. This is called interoception and exteroception working together. It's a natural calming mechanism your nervous system has always had. You just weren't taught how to use it. The Stoics didn't speak of feet in this way, but they practiced what this habit creates: embodied awareness. Epictetus taught that control lies in how we respond, not in what happens. And how do we gain that control? By returning to the moment, returning to the body. By realizing we don't have to chase peace in thoughts, we can stand in it, feel it rise, up from the ground. This habit is especially useful when anxiety is high, when you feel disconnected, when you're stuck in overthinking, because the moment you feel the ground, really feel it, you come back. The story in your head softens. The loop slows, because your nervous system has received a new input. We are not floating. We are held. Try this throughout the day. When you wake up, before standing, let your feet touch the floor. Feel the texture. During work, remove your shoes under the desk for 30 seconds. Notice the contrast. Before bed, stand barefoot. Close your eyes and feel. Let the ground speak calm into your body. This takes less than a minute. No one needs to know. It doesn't look impressive, but that's the beauty of it. It's yours. A private practice of return, a signal that you're here, not lost in the storm of thought, but grounded in the truth of sensation. So ask yourself, when was the last time I trusted my body to bring me peace? Not my intellect, not my coping strategies, just my body. Because sometimes the first step back to emotional stability is remembering that your feet are already on solid ground. Answer one question without saying, "I don't know." It's become a reflex. Someone asks you a question about how you feel, what you want, what you think, and without skipping a beat you reply, "I don't know." Not because you truly don't know, but because the answer feels messy, uncertain, incomplete, or maybe too honest. So, you shut it down before it has a chance to form. And just like that, a part of your truth is silenced again. But here's the thing. Your nervous system craves clarity, not perfection. It doesn't need you to have everything figured out. It needs you to feel safe enough to speak something, to express a real, raw answer, even if it's just, "I'm overwhelmed, but I'm trying." Because when you suppress your voice out of fear of getting it wrong, you teach your body that your truth isn't safe, and that over time becomes a deep and quiet form of instability. This is where the habit comes in. Once a day, answer one question fully without hiding behind, "I don't know." It can be a simple question. How are you feeling? What do you need right now? What do you want to eat? What do you wish someone would say to you? Instead of defaulting to vagueness, pause, breathe. Give your nervous system a chance to hear your own voice choose. The Stoics were radically honest, not because they had all the answers, but because they believed in practicing awareness. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for clarity. He wrote them to find it. And that's what this habit does. It teaches your system. We are allowed to speak even in the fog. When you speak what's true, even if it's uncertain, your body relaxes, your mind stops spinning. You step out of guessing and into grounding. The words don't need to be right. They just need to be real. I'm not sure what I feel, but I know I need rest. I'm frustrated and I don't fully understand why. That's enough. That's the moment of reconnection. You can start this in writing in the mirror, in a quiet voice in the car, or with someone you trust. Choose a question you'd usually avoid or brush off, and instead of shrinking from it, try find a sentence, find a beginning. Because often clarity isn't something you start with. It's something you earn by being willing to speak. And if no one's asking you questions, ask yourself, what do I need today? What's bothering me that I'm pretending isn't? Where am I not being honest with myself? Then answer gently, imperfectly, completely. So ask yourself now, where have I been using I don't know to avoid facing what's real? And what would happen if I trusted that my voice didn't need to be polished? It just needed to be heard. Because every time you speak from presence instead of fear, you build emotional stability one word at a time. Choose one emotion to welcome each day. Most of us wake up and immediately brace ourselves for emails, for noise, for whatever emotion hits us first. And when that emotion comes, especially if it's uncomfortable, we resist, we tense, we try to override it with positivity or productivity. But what if instead of resisting your emotional weather, you welcomed it? This habit is simple but powerful. Once a day, name one emotion and say out loud, "Today I welcome Bakut." That's it. No fixing, no managing, just naming and allowing. Today I welcome calm. Today I welcome uncertainty. Today I welcome grief. Today I welcome joy. The emotion doesn't have to be pleasant. It just has to be real. Why does this matter? Because the nervous system calms when it feels acknowledged, not solved, not corrected, not silenced, just seen. When you name an emotion and give it permission to exist, your mind stops treating it like a threat. Resistance creates more chaos, but welcome, even when whispered, creates space. It allows the feeling to rise, move through, and eventually settle. And that flow is what creates emotional stability. The Stoics were not emotionless. They were emotionally literate. They didn't suppress their reactions. They studied them, observed them. Marcus Aurelius every morning prepared himself for annoyance, greed, and irrationality. Not to resist them, but to recognize them and respond from a higher place. That's what this habit offers you. Emotional leadership instead of emotional avoidance. This isn't about forcing feelings you don't believe. It's about being honest with what's already present or what you're open to meeting. If you've been anxious, you might say, "Today, I welcome ease." Not because you're demanding it, but because you're inviting it in. And if you're heavy with emotion, you might say, "Today, I welcome sadness." Not to drown in it, but to let it move without shame. Say it out loud. If you can feel how your body reacts, often there's a softening, a sense of alignment, because the part of you that holds emotion wants one thing more than control: respect. This habit gives it exactly that. Try keeping a running list. Notice patterns. You may find you welcome the same emotion over and over, and that's not failure. That's your system asking to be met where it is. And over time, you'll notice something else. Your tolerance increases. Your clarity strengthens. Your fear softens. Because what we welcome, we stop fearing. So ask yourself, what emotion have I been pushing away? What would happen if I let it sit beside me even for today? Even for one breath? Because emotional strength doesn't come from always feeling good. It comes from feeling everything and still choosing peace. Chew slowly and without distraction for one bite. It's easy to overlook. You eat every day, probably several times a day. But when was the last time you truly noticed a bite of food? Not the taste alone, but the motion, the texture, the rhythm of your jaw, the pace of your breath as you swallowed. We eat on autopilot, rushing, scrolling, standing, multitasking. But what if one bite, just one, became a daily anchor for emotional regulation? This habit doesn't ask for a diet. It doesn't require willpower. It's not about health. It's about presence. Once a day, pick a bite of anything. A piece of fruit, a spoonful of soup, a slice of bread, and commit to one thing. Chew it slowly with no distraction, no phone, no conversation, no scrolling. Just you and the bite. Let your full attention rest on what's happening. The flavor, the texture, the sound inside your mouth. The simple act of tasting without rushing. Why does this work? Because chewing slowly with presence brings your nervous system into the parasympathetic state. This is your rest and digest mode, the state where healing happens, the state where the body stops bracing and starts opening. And when you do it deliberately, your brain gets the signal we are safe. We are nourished. There is no emergency. The Stoics believed in conscious moderation, not just for health, but for discipline of attention. Epictetus taught that mindfulness could be practiced in the simplest acts, eating, speaking, walking, because those are the real battlegrounds of awareness, not the grand gestures, the everyday moments. And what's more, every day than chewing. And yet when you chew with intention, even once, you exit autopilot. You pause the loop of thoughts. You return to your body. You meet the moment with full presence. This bite becomes a meditation, a reset, a quiet reminder that you don't have to earn peace through effort. Sometimes it's already on your plate. You don't have to do this every meal. You don't have to count chews. You don't need rules. Just the ritual. One bite, one breath, one moment of complete attention. And if it feels silly or small, good. That's the point. You're retaching your nervous system. That calm can begin with something as gentle as food. So ask yourself, when was the last time I gave myself permission to do just one thing slowly and without distraction? Could emotional stability really begin with how I chew? Because peace isn't only found in silence. Sometimes it's found in a single quiet bite. Switch the side of your bed you get out of. You probably don't even think about it. Every morning you wake up and get out of bed from the same side, same motion, same step, same stretch. And your body, your mind, your emotional rhythm, they've memorized it. Not because it's meaningful in itself, but because routine creates emotional grooves. Some of those grooves bring calm, others bring unconscious tension, but they all reinforce patterns. And here's the key. Patterns can be disrupted gently, subtly, powerfully. This habit is as simple as it sounds. Once a day, get out of bed from the other side. That's it. But what it creates is far from small. Why does this matter? Because your brain links physical movement with emotional state. The body learns to associate location with mood, with expectation, with mental scripts. If every morning you slide out of bed, groggy, rushed, slightly anxious, and you always move in the exact same way, then that motion becomes an unconscious trigger for that same emotional tone. It becomes the first domino in a cascade of stress. But change the path even by a step, and your mind wakes up not in panic, but in curiosity. It says, wait, this is new. And in that moment of micro-awareness, you're not just shifting physically. You're creating a new entry point to the day, a chance to ask yourself, how do I want to move differently through the next few hours? The Stoics believed in awareness through interruption. Seneca reminded us that the unexamined life is not only unwise, it's unfree. Every time you act without noticing, you're living by habit, not by choice. But when you shift something as small as how you leave the bed, you regain a few seconds of consciousness. And those seconds can set the tone for everything that follows. Think of this not as a rule, but as a game. Switch sides, climb over, roll to the other edge. Make it clumsy if you have to, but feel it. Notice how different your body moves. Notice how your feet land. Notice the part of your mind that wants to correct you and ask it why. Because the more you learn to welcome disruption, the less your emotional balance depends on comfort or repetition. You build flexibility, mental elasticity. You train your system to adapt instead of just perform. So ask yourself, what emotional script have I been reinforcing just by moving the same way through my morning? What might shift if I changed one small motion and use that change as a new beginning? Because sometimes emotional stability doesn't require a new mindset. It just requires a new step. Trace your finger in a circle for 30 seconds. When the mind races and the body tightens, we instinctively try to think our way out. We analyze, we argue with ourselves, we rehearse outcomes, we scroll, we distract. But what the nervous system really craves in those moments isn't logic or explanation. It craves rhythm, something simple, predictable, repetitive, and nothing is more ancient, more primal, more calming than circular motion. This habit is deceptively small. Take one finger and slowly trace a circle on your palm, your thigh, a table, a page, anywhere. Do it for 30 seconds. No goal, no meaning, just the shape. Why does this help? Because circular motion is a self-soothing pattern recognized even in infancy. Babies rock, they trace, they spin objects. It's instinct, a nervous system regulation tool baked into the body. And as adults, we forget it. We trade it for stimulation, solutions, or control. But the nervous system doesn't evolve away from rhythm. It still wants the same thing, a reason to slow down, emotion that says, all is well. When you trace a circle, your breath sinks. Your mind stops trying to get ahead. Your body feels the return, the repetition, the gentle loop. It doesn't demand attention. It invites it softly, safely. There's no magic in the shape itself. The magic is in the return. The motion that has no end, no edge, no sharp angles, no finish line. Just one motion again and again until the tension in your shoulders begins to melt and your brain stops scanning for danger. The Stoics spoke of cyclical thinking, the rhythm of nature, the turning of seasons, the repetition of day and night. They reminded themselves that life flows, and when we resist that flow, we suffer. But when we move with it, we stabilize. And this small circle, this finger tracing a shape, is a micro-practice in moving with life. You don't force it. You let it guide you back into now. Try it anywhere. In a meeting, under the table, in bed when thoughts won't stop, in line when impatience rises, in silence just to feel yourself present. You may notice a wave of calm, not always big, but steady, and you'll begin to build a kind of trust with your body again, not through thinking your way into peace, but moving your way into it. So ask yourself, what would change if I gave my nervous system the kind of rhythm it actually understands? Could peace be as simple as a circle drawn slowly with care for no reason at all? Because the shape doesn't need meaning. It just needs motion. And sometimes that's all you need too. End the day with one sentence. You wish someone told you, we end our days surrounded by silence, but not always peace. The lights dim, the noise slows, and what remains is often a soft ache, the unspoken things, the support we didn't receive, the encouragement no one offered, the warmth we craved but never heard out loud. And rather than admit that longing, we scroll, we distract, we sleep with the weight still there. But what if healing began not by erasing that ache, but by answering it ourselves? This final habit is deeply personal and profoundly simple. Before bed, speak one sentence out loud that you wish someone had told you today. That's it. One line. You did enough. You don't have to carry this alone. You are seen. I'm proud of you. You're not pretending. You're not faking connection. You're giving your nervous system the one thing it often lacks most: validation without condition, and when that sentence is spoken in your own voice, even softly, even awkwardly, your brain registers it as real. Your body hears it. Your heart exhales. Because sometimes what wounds us isn't just what happened, it's what was never said. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about forcing affirmations you don't believe. It's about reaching into the quiet and offering yourself what the world forgot to give you. And in that gesture, in that soft whispered phrase, you begin to reparent the parts of you still waiting. The Stoics didn't speak in terms of emotional language like we do today, but they understood the importance of inner dialogue. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself nightly, not because he had no one else, but because the relationship with one's own soul was to him the most sacred. He reminded himself of strength, of reason, of value. He did not wait for the world to tell him. He told himself because he needed to hear it. And so do you. So tonight, don't let the day end in silence. Before you turn off the light, before your thoughts drift into the unknown, say it, the sentence, the one you needed, the one no one gave you. Not because you were unworthy, but because they were unaware. Say it softly. Say it for you. So ask yourself now, what would I most want to hear tonight if someone truly saw me? Then say it and say it like you mean it, because that voice, yours, can become the most powerful source of comfort you'll ever know. And with that, let the day end, not with emptiness, but with honor. You don't need to wait for a breakdown to begin healing. You don't need a retreat in the mountains, a radical transformation, or a perfect morning routine. You just need moments, small, deliberate, quiet moments that remind your body we are safe now. Because emotional stability isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you cultivate one habit at a time. Not through force, but through rhythm. Not through intensity, but through intention. Every habit you heard in this episode is tiny by design. So small you could dismiss it, so subtle you might forget it. But each one carries weight, not in how big it looks, but in what it whispers to your nervous system. We don't need to rush. We don't need to explain. We are allowed to slow down, to feel, to return. You see, healing doesn't shout. It repeats. It shows up in circles, in pauses, in how you chew, in which foot touches the ground first. It's how you move your hands when no one's watching. It's the tone you use with yourself at the end of the day. It's what you welcome and what you finally allow yourself to release. So don't chase stability. Build it gently, quietly, daily. And if this episode helped you, share it with someone who feels like their inner world has been too loud for too long. Someone who deserves peace that doesn't require perfection. Someone who's learning like you to come home to themselves in the smallest ways possible. Because the most powerful habits are the ones that no one sees but you always feel. Conclusion. Emotional stability isn't a destination you reach. It's a relationship you build with yourself daily. Through these 15 micro habits, you've learned how small intentional actions can anchor your nervous system, create inner rhythm, and restore presence without the need for perfection. This is your invitation to return, not to who you were before the stress, but to who you are beneath it all. A self who can slow down. A self who can choose gentleness over urgency. A self who remembers that real strength is felt, not flaunted. Let each of these habits serve as a gentle reminder. Healing isn't always loud, but it is always possible.